Hey everyone! In today's video, you're going to learn about 7 simple and easy ways to get into ketosis faster. These are the exact same strategies that the world's top experts are using with their clients right now. My name is Josh Kumos, founder of Josh Kumos Fitness, a place where busy professionals can go to find simple and easy to follow lifestyle strategies to lose weight. And today, you're going to learn how to lose up to 2 pounds per week and get razor sharp mental clarity with the ketogenic diet. Keep watching. Before we get into the 7 strategies, I want to talk about how the body is actually able to use 2 different sources of fuel and why we want to use fat as a primary source of fuel in order to get into ketosis. Now, like I said, there's 2 sources of fuel the body can use. The first one that most people use is sugar. So sugar, people will burn on sugar or use sugar as fuel if they have a high carbohydrate diet, a high processed foods diet, and if they're eating a lot of meals throughout the day. Your body will primarily run on sugar, which will cause your insulin levels to be always increased. Now, ketosis teaches your body to run on fat as fuel, and that's the second source the body can run on, is the source of fat, which will then get transferred into something called ketones. In order to run on ketones in the body, your insulin levels must be low. If your insulin levels are not low, you'll never be able to use fat as energy. If insulin's high, it means your blood sugar is high, that means you're constantly running on sugar. So one of your biggest concerns in a ketogenic diet is to make sure insulin levels are low. That is your primary goal, is to get them as low as possible. So now we're going to get straight into the tips. Tip number 1 is you must keep carbohydrates under 50 grams per day. So you need to keep total carbs to under 50 grams per day. Now remember just in the beginning that I talked about how the body can run on sugar and fat as fuel. If you're having carbs too high and if they're above 50 grams per day, you're going to be running on sugar as fuel, not on ketones. The second thing you want to do under tip number 1 is to make sure sugar is under 20 grams. So this includes added sugar or even just sugar in fruits like natural sugars or natural sugars in honey. You really want to keep that sugar level underneath 20 grams. So you're going to need to make sure you read your labels and be really diligent about the foods you're eating. They can't really contain too many carbs or too much sugar. And the big thing that you gotta want to focus on, even though you want to stay underneath 50 grams per day in terms of carbohydrates, the lower this number is, the better and faster you are going to get into ketosis. Now to piggyback off of tip number 1, since you're not going to be eating any carbs on this diet, you're going to need to increase the fat you eat. The more fat you eat, the more it teaches your body to use fat as fuel. So about 70% of your calories are going to need to come from healthy fats. And now you might ask, what are some sources of healthy fats? Well, coconuts are good, avocados are good, ghee, extra virgin olive oil, grass-fed butter, even fatty cuts of meat. So you can think of like 80% protein and like 20% fat in terms of meat, or even a big ribeye has a lot of fat in it. The big thing here is when you increase your healthy fats, when healthy fats increase, the key that many people run into is they don't cut their carbohydrates low enough. If you're upping your healthy fats and you're keeping your carbs high, you're going to still be in a sugar mode. You won't burn any fat. So again, if you're increasing the fat, those carbohydrates have to stay below 50 grams per day. It's a must. If you don't, this won't work. The third strategy to get into ketosis faster is something called intermittent fasting. Now remember in the beginning of the video, we want to turn our body into a fat burner. In order to do that, we need to bring insulin levels down. One of the best ways to bring insulin levels down is intermittent fasting. And my favorite method to teach people how to do intermittent fasting is the 16 hours on, 8 hours off method, which practically means you're going to stop eating dinner or your last meal at around 8 p.m. and you're not going to eat until the next day at around 12 p.m. So really the only meal you're really skipping is breakfast. So from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. is your eating window, is when you can eat, and then from 8 p.m. till 12 p.m. the next day is when you need to be fasting. Again, this is going to teach your body to bring those insulin levels down and start using fat as fuel. And the fourth strategy to get into ketosis faster is exercise. So what exercise is going to do is it's going to help burn off the added sugar that you have in your body. It's going to help burn off the glycogen stores that you have in your muscle. It's going to make you a little bit more insulin sensitive as well. And in turn, it's going to bring your insulin levels down. All things we need to get into ketosis faster. Again, if insulin goes down, we're going to start using fat for fuel. Now, when I'm talking about exercise, I'm talking about resistance training. I'm talking about actually using barbells, dumbbells, and doing some heavy lifting. If you do kind of like walking or yoga or Pure Barre or anything of that sort, that's not really hard enough in order to deplete the glycogen stores in your muscles. So you're going to really need to focus on doing some type of really heavy lifting or even some HIIT interval type training. And tip number 5 is exogenous ketones. Now, before we get into exogenous ketones, make sure you do steps 1 through 4 first before you jump into this one. This one really won't have much effect unless you're doing the first 4 properly. So exogenous ketones are ketones that are produced outside the body. So you'll get them in the forms of supplements. Now there's a few different supplements that you can kind of buy in order to get into ketosis faster. The first one is called MCT oil, or medium chain triglyceride oil. And the one thing you really want to focus on with MCT oil is finding a product that has a lot of C8. Now, a lot of them will have C10 or C12 as their main medium chain triglyceride. You really want to look for one with a high C8. That's going to be your biggest bang for your buck. You can also find ketone salts. These are really highly effective. These are the ones that I actually use the most with a combination of MCT oil. And the last one is ketone esters. Really, ketone esters, they're a little bit more pricey right now, and they kind of taste like rocket fuel. So this one you may want to stay away from for the time being. I'm sure it'll get a little bit cheaper in the future, but right now they're not really that practical. And there are a few companies that I personally like to use in order to buy my keto supplements. I don't get any payments from these companies at all. These are the companies I honestly just use myself. RealKetones.com. This company actually took all the work from Dr. Dominic D'Agostino. So if you know who he is, they actually patented all of his technology underneath their company. So they're very good. Prove It Now has been around for quite a while now. They're very good. And then Keto Sports is another one. And actually my personal favorite is from Keto Sports, a product called Keto Blitz. So it's called Keto Blitz. And it's one of the products that I've probably has gotten me into the deepest level state of ketosis that I've tried so far. These 6 tips to get into ketosis faster is either black coffee or green tea. So either black coffee or green tea, what that'll do is it's going to help mobilize your fatty stores a little bit more. So all that fat you kind of got on, it's going to help mobilize that fat so it can be used for energy. And I really, really like to combine black coffee and green tea with something called Carnitol. It's a product from Jarrow, and it has 4 different sources of carnitine, so L-carnitine. And what carnitine does is it actually takes the fatty acids that would have been mobilized by the black coffee or the green tea, and it actually shoves it into the mitochondria. I want to actually say shove it, but it puts it in the mitochondria, and it allows the mitochondria to use fat for energy. So instead of just letting the fat mobilize and just kind of hang around and then not do anything, the carnitine will actually take those fatty acids and put it in the mitochondria so you can use it for energy. So this 1-2 combo of black coffee and green tea plus carnitol is going to be a really nice, effective strategy to kind of help utilize those fat stores a little bit better. Now finally, the last tip, tip number 7. This one really isn't a tip to get into ketosis faster. It's more of a tip so that when you're actually in ketosis that you feel better. So one of the main things that people on a ketogenic diet will occur is they'll actually feel kind of crummy and kind of terrible. And that's because some of the reasons are because their sodium levels get low and their electrolyte levels get too low. And so when you're on a ketogenic diet, you really, really need to make sure you're upping your sodium intake. So a good way to kind of do that is making a homemade bone broth, so that has a lot of good nutrients and minerals in it. And then you also kind of want to supplement with electrolytes or making sure you're getting enough electrolytes from your foods. You want to make sure potassium's up. Again, mentioned sodium needs to be up, And that way, when you're actually in ketosis, you won't feel as terrible as you normally would. So like I said, when you're in ketosis, salt is going to have to go up, the good mineral salts, good Himalayan salts have to go up, and that'll just help you make you feel just a little bit better when you're in ketosis. So I'm just going to quickly go over what you exactly want to do in terms of ketogenic diet. The biggest thing is you want to keep your carbs low. That is the biggest mistake most people run into, is their carbs are too high. So keep your carbs underneath 50 grams per day, limit those sugars to about under 20 grams per day, and really be careful and be diligent about reading all your labels. The second thing you really want to do is up those healthy fats. The higher those healthy fats are, the better your body is able to utilize fat as fuel. But again, you can't have fats high and carbs high. It won't work. You'll just be storing fat. So make sure carbs are low, fats are high. And really the next thing is you really want to focus on keeping your insulin levels low. Make sure they're low. Make sure you're doing things like exercise. Make sure you're doing things like high intensity interval training. And making sure you're eating very good wholesome foods. If you stick with those kind of principles, you should be able to get into ketogenic diet or ketosis very, very quickly. If you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to my channel right now. Also, if you want me to talk about anything else in the future, whether it's ketogenic diet or intermittent fasting or any other questions that you have, make sure to leave a comment below. Thank you guys so much for watching.